than 4 or 8 years ago, is something that is not a luxury that a lot of people can
No,
afford.
they don't. But then I would just say this: that there are people out there that are doing the work, that
Yeah.
are, finding out from City Hall what's going on and speaking up, just to give people that 5 to 10 second time to explain what is happening and for you to take that in.
So, okay, so what would you do different? Because we talk about this. I mean, some of the stuff that we're talking about today, I could roll the tape back and we probably covered a bunch of it. In 6 months from now to 2 years from now, 8 years from now, we'll probably talk about the same thing. There's some issues. Anybody doesn't believe me, go to your old newspapers and go back
Right.
about 40 years and you'll see that the names of the guilty parties have changed. The context of the stories have changed, but the
Right.
underlying reasoning and all this stuff and the fight back is basically exactly the same. So what would you do? Because you said the city needs to lead. The leadership needs to lead. Now, if I ask somebody who's sitting on city council right now, they say, "Oh, we're doing it." So, what is it that they're not doing, and what is it that needs to be done? Because again, it has to be sort of a combination, a partnership with all these
Right.
parties involved, right? So, what is it that's not being done, and what would you do?
So one of the first things I would say is they're not really listening, because the community is beginning to show up in numbers now at city council meetings, and they're speaking up. And I don't feel that they feel that they're being heard. And so we need council members that are listening and are taking that to heart, and as they're making decisions, taking that into account.
Any particular examples recently that you can mention
So
where
right
you
now,
feel that they weren't listening?
right now, I'll share with you the one of the most controversial issues with the Veteran Cemetery in Irvine.
Okay.
Right,
That's in the Great Park, right? That was promised in the Great Park?
adjacent to the Great
Adjacent
Park,
Great Park,
right?
okay.
And so people were going back and forth on the locations, and the developer came in and offered this land at the Strawberry Fields, good clean land, ready to build on. Some people were really attached to the original site, which is closer to the El Toro base. And so that fight went on for a while, and then it came to it where it was going to be put on the ballot and people were going to vote on it. So we kept hearing over and over, let the people speak and then we'll do what the people want to do, right? Now, when the vote came back, it was against what the council had hoped for. So a lot of people voted for the original site instead of the new Strawberry Field site. So at that point, you would think that the council would be like, okay, you know what, the people have spoken, and we're going to move forward. They haven't. They're still trying to find a different location other than the original. And they come up with things like, oh, it's going to be
For
$80 million of city taxes and stuff. And you're constantly saying to them, that's not true. Because in the beginning, when we had this whole ceremony of, picking out that site, we were told that there was going to be state funding and then there was going to be federal funding coming in. So why is it now that all of a sudden the city has the burden of the $80 million?
What does the city or city council want to do with that original site? Because there's got to be
There's got to be a plan, and we don't know what that plan is.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. And that's what takes time to get involved in. So that is something that I was aware of. You know, the other thing that's fascinating to me is this issue of homeless,
Yes.
right? And how it is regarded as being, you know, these are all people that are single and they're all come from the Santa Ana riverbed.
It's all
and all this stuff.
uneducated, slander that's out there. And it was a shame that our city council members were, kind of riling the community up, saying that you're going to have syringes on the streets as your kids walk to school.
Yep.
There's going to be sex offenders on the streets.
Yep.
And UCI, and United Way and others were constantly trying to hold forums, educating the people that we're looking at families that are one paycheck away that are homeless. We have people that are working and still homeless. We've got women that are alone and are targets of sexual abuse that are homeless. And
The
so,
largest population of homeless, the largest growth in the homeless population is actually seniors and families.
exactly. And so when you don't put the right information out in front of your populations, you're really doing a disservice. And
They're doing it on purpose, though.
They're doing it on purpose, because at the same time, I mean, no one wanted a tent city in the Great Park or on the county land. That's not the solution. The solution is working with your community partners and coming up with a plan to get people into some sort of housing.
There wouldn't have been a discussion about tent cities if the supervisors of Orange County actually spent the almost $230 million that they had set aside for the homeless issue, rather than burying it because they didn't want to basically deal with a controversial issue. Leadership means dealing with controversial issues, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, if you're not ready to do that, guess what? Leave the chair, because I'm sick and tired of voting for you.
Well said, Rod. I mean, and at this point, what happened in Irvine was a group was created that was like No Tent City in Irvine, had about 6,000 residents in that Facebook group. And I joined in because I wanted to hear what people were saying and give them an opportunity to go to different forums and learn what was actually happening.
What did you find out?
I got blocked from that group, and I was basically labeled as someone that wanted the homeless population to be running around wild in our city.
Because it was a group that seemed to be benevolent and interested in a solution, when in fact all it was basically reaffirming a pre-existing bias that had an agenda behind it. It's the same as these organizations that are being set up to basically be housed by people that are assigned by elected officials, and they're basically the buffer to, because these people that are assigned are not subject to voter removal. And so they're sitting there and they're writing these letters and signing them as if they are some sort of like formalized authority, pillar of the community, but all it is a friggin' cover page with a nice logo, an impressive name, and all that letter's supposed to do is rubber stamp somebody's decision to pursue something that the people don't necessarily want.
So we need people that are problem solvers, not problem creators.
Well, yeah, I mean, the problems are going to happen. Anybody in Orange County that thinks the homeless problem is the sky is falling and Chicken Little and oh my God, the world is ending, go Google homeless in the United States and find out for yourself that the issue of homelessness has been around as long as the United States has been around, like every other country. What you choose to do it, and homelessness has multiple layers. Like I said, the largest growth in population is the senior community, like elderly that are homeless, becoming homeless, one step away from a medical cost that they can't afford that kicks them out of the house. Okay. The families, not individual drug addicts that everybody's talking about. I'm not saying that isn't part of the population, but you can't just brush stroke everybody the same way. You're never going to find a solution that way.
Right. And we're not saying that there aren't people that have drug issues and mental issues. Sure they do, and we do need wraparound support services
Homeless
for them.
shelters should have those services as part of the offering, yes.
But we can't lump everyone into one bucket and say,
veterans with PTSD, are we calling those guys drug addicts and sex offenders too? I mean, and while we're wrapping ourselves in the flag for 4th of July, I mean, okay. So I know we're going to run out of time, but I want people to know how to get hold of you. So how do they get hold of you? How can they participate? How do they get involved?
Wonderful. Yes, they can go to my website. It's electfarrah.org, and reach me on Facebook. It's Farrah for Irvine. And I'm pretty accessible. I mean, my phone number's out there. My email is out there.
How can people help?
Right now, what I need are people that are willing to knock on those doors, talk to people, and inform them of who's running and why, what are the platforms that we're running on. I need people to make phone calls to people that they know in Irvine, and really just get the word out, because this isn't a big money campaign. This is a people-to-people campaign.
What are you looking to do this time around, based on what you learned the first time around?
Definitely have a little bit of a pocket, some pocket change at the end of the campaign, because I'm expecting there to be negative mailers again.
Unfortunately, it costs money.